Hello, I am Elijah Armstrong. I am a lighter skinned black male with locks, and I am wearing a black shirt. And this is our second year of Heumann-Armstrong Award videos. For those of you who don't know, the Heumann-Armstrong Award is a education award for students in the 6th grade and up, including all forms of higher education, who've experienced and fought against ableism in education. Every year, we select 6 winners who each receive a $1,000 monetary award, and we shoot a video with each of our 6 winners, giving them the chance to tell their story. And this is one of those videos. Before I introduce this winner, I would like to say thank you to Shruti Rajkumar for doing our interviews this year. And if you are going to be having a discussion around these videos, please use the hashtag Heumann-Armstrong on social media so that we can join in and be a part of this discussion. So anyway, without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Alexandra Zandy Wong. On screen now is the logo for all 4 organizations: the American Association of People with Disabilities, the Quello Center, Equal Opportunities for Students, and Esquire Bank. On screen now is the logo for the Heumann-Armstrong Award and white text on a gray background that reads, "Present 2022-2023 Heumann-Armstrong Award winner Alexandra Zandy Wong, illustrated by Access Gallery."
Hi everyone, my name is Zandy Wong. My pronouns are she, her, hers. An image description of me right now. I am a Asian American woman with short black hair, and I'm wearing a navy blue t-shirt, and I'm in front of a glass wall. Yeah.
A photo of Zandy. Zandy, an Asian American woman with short black hair, wearing a purple rain jacket and smiling.
And I go to school at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, and I'm originally from Alexandra, Virginia, which is right outside Washington, D.C. And I'm currently in my junior year at Hopkins. I study public health there.
An illustration of Zandy in the same position.
I'm based at Johns Hopkins. I study public health here. I love it. Currently, I'm on the pre-med track. We'll see what happens, but I think public health is a really great way to understand the social and cultural impacts of medicine and health on communities, which is really exciting for me. My favorite class right now is biostats, so we're using a lot of data and data analytics to really find insights about communities and about diseases, which is a lot of fun for me. And a lot of my work here at Hopkins focuses on disability advocacy, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. But some fun things I'm a part of: I'm a tour guide occasionally. I'm part of Alpha Phi Omega, which is a service fraternity, kind of like Key Club, and we go help citizens in the Baltimore communities. And I also like to run. I picked up running again. So yeah, it's a fun environment, a little bit of a vigorous one as well, but you know, you make the best of it. You just keep going.
An illustration of Johns Hopkins.
So I have hearing loss. I was born with oval window atresia, which basically means that a bone in the middle ear and oval window is deformed, so the sound never quite makes it to the cochlea to be processed as sound. So I would say about this is not scientifically correct, but 90% of the hearing in my left ear is gone, has been gone since birth. And to others that don't really understand what hearing loss is like, is basically just putting earmuffs on and never being able to take them off. As far as how that's affected me academically in school, it just takes me a lot of time to process information because it's hard for me to decipher conversations, what people are saying, in group conversation, especially noisy places, it's even harder. So sometimes I have to have a cart captioner who captions everything that's going on come along. But yeah, it's a little bit of a struggle in school because, you know, my disability is an invisible one and it's a pretty common one as well. So it's somewhat hard to distinguish, you know, trying to figure out exactly what I need going into this school year.
A student wearing earmuffs.
Oh my goodness, there's so much. I think I didn't realize quite the extent of it until I got to college and learned a little bit more about disability advocacy and disability identity. In elementary through to high school, it was kind of like very discreet ableism. People just make comments. I just faced a lot of exclusion. People call me the what girl, which is a little ridiculous. I think one incident that really sparked my journey in disability advocacy is when I was in 11th grade. So, wow, already 4 years ago at this point. But a bunch of kids laughed at me for no good reason. And they knew I had hearing loss because I misspoke in a conversation because I didn't hear everything. And it was, I think for a long time going into school from K to 12, I didn't really talk about disability much because I didn't want people to make fun of my disability. When people were still aware of it and still decided to make fun of it, I think it became obvious to me that I had to do a little bit more to address that.
A group of students laughing at Zandy.
So coming into college, I learned more about disability identity, disability advocacy, and it just pointed out a lot of systemic flaws in Hopkins' system and dealing with ableism. The transition from COVID to in-person classes was very rough because we had unclear policies on masks. The technologies were available for use. Like, for example, I use cart captioning, and you can enable cart captioning in Zoom. We often had professors who didn't really understand how to put that in or even what a cart captioner was, so it took a lot of time to explain that. And some other examples from recently is I was working in a group project, and I think this comes to the subject of disclosure versus not disclosure. I hadn't quite requested that I need accommodations yet, but I lost a lot of points in a group project, lowering my grade, like whole letter grade, because I couldn't hear what was going on in a conversation, and the group project's member said I wasn't communicative, but that was just literally because I couldn't hear. So it was a little ridiculous, but
Zandy getting a bad grade from a professor.
I think it's important to point out these discrepancies, but that, I hope that people aren't intentionally ableist. I think they're just really unaware sometimes, and they try their best. So, that's what my work comes in, to try to clear some of those uncertainties and stereotypes they might have about disability and accommodations in the classroom. So interestingly enough, after 4th grade, my family decided to get rid of the 504 plan for me, which meant I didn't really have any accommodations from 4th grade up to high school. And so I think I did pretty well, especially since there wasn't COVID to worry about. And I just asked people for extra time or just to repeat themselves. That was one kind of mini accommodation I put in place. And in college, I knew the classes were going to get a lot more difficult, and it was COVID when I graduated high school and went into college. And so I requested a lot more. For in-person classes, I requested clear masks, which are, I don't have them on me, but they're masks that kind of have like a plastic frame, so it still protects you, but you can also have someone who's deaf or hard of hearing like me be able to lip read, which is really important for me because masks weren't always best for that, even though it was very important for keeping us safe. I also use cart captioning, where I have an amazing captionist, Terry, who comes along with me to every class and provides the cart captioning. It's kind of like what you see on Netflix when you're watching TV, and you see the words that people are saying. Anything else I use? Sometimes I use a microphone that I don't have on me, but a microphone that you kind of just clip on to professors, like shirt or something like that, and you can hear them as you go along. It's often I can get the accommodation. It's just, will people actually enforce them and put them in place? And that's what I've ran into errors in the past. But I access them through my Student Disability Services office, and I coordinate individually with teachers, which is a little bit of a iffy thing because I don't necessarily want to disclose that I have hearing loss, and I think it really should be the responsibility of Student Disability Services to do that. But I'm willing to put in the work to get the accommodations I need because we as disabled students have just the right education to everyone else.
A professor wearing a clear mask with a microphone pinned to his jacket.
Disability rights and disability justice means to really work towards having a world where we aren't afraid to talk about disability and we aren't overcompensating or having to adjust for a disability. What I mean by overcompensating and adjusting, it means that people with disabilities don't have to keep explaining themselves to just gain access to resources that everyone else has. I tell people I know when my work's done or this is the ultimate goal, but I know when work's done is when I don't have to continually explain that I need stuff and that these resources are just inner and part of communities.
A wheelchair user using a ramp to enter a building.
I got involved in disability advocacy, disability justice, and disability rights. During the pandemic, I got involved. I had a bullying incident in high school that kind of prompted me to share my story a little bit more, and I gave a TED talk about it, and I thought, I should probably explore this a little bit more because I'm a little bit unaware of what's going on. And so I learned a lot through disability Twitter and the disability community here at Hopkins, really learning about disability justice and how I view disability outside of a medical or scientific construct, because that's what I had worked in previously before. And it's been really empowering to build community with youth with disabilities, because I didn't have a lot of that growing up, and I was often alone and trying to navigate what it means to be disabled.
A person using Twitter.
I am Asian American, technically first generation on my mom's side. I'm Chinese and Vietnamese. This affects how I view ableism and disability in general. Because my family didn't really understand disability growing up, they were able to get me the resources I needed, and I'm very thankful and privileged to have access to all the medical care I needed. Looking back, I wished I had someone to help me really navigate my way as I dealt with ableism and trying to get education. So that was a little rough. But I recognize that the Asian community is very focused on their views, and you just deal with it, you keep moving on. I am grateful to so many mentors and role models along the way. I think 3 that I want to name. I talked to Jen before I said this, but one is Jennifer Lee. She's the founder of the Asian American with Disability Initiative. She actually won the Heumann-Armstrong last year. And she has been an absolute icon, and she's like my age too, so I look up to her a lot, but really helping me find solace and peace in the intersection of being Asian and disabled. She's offered me so much advice over the years and has just continued to encourage me to keep going with my work and what I do. 2 other mentors here at Hopkins that I want to shout out. My mentor, Dr. Salak Rathnanadar, he was the first congenitally deaf PhD graduate from Oxford, where he graduated PhD in neuroscience and biomedical engineering, and he's been really crucial in helping me get to the point of finding my way in science and becoming a disabled scientist. And then another mentor I have is Dr. Bonalyn Sweener. She's like an informal one. I talk to her time to time, but she's been instrumental in really providing disability equity in research, especially in healthcare settings, and really changing the paradigm from just living with disability to thriving with disability.
Zandy with Jennifer Lee and Dr. Bonalyn Sweener.
Something that I realized was that we had the education and the tools to make things accessible. It's just that people were really unaware of how to make them accessible. So the first organization I worked with was Engineering Tomorrow, which I'm a college mentor for. And basically I was helping them update the accessibility of their virtual hybrid labs, which are basically PowerPoints or Google Slides. And so I taught them how to use alt text, how to check for color contrast, what kind of fonts to use, what kind of fonts not to use. And so what I really try to do in my work is help people realize that they have individual power to help create a more accessible world. They don't necessarily need to know how to code or know everything about accessibility, but there's small tricks you can put into place to make educational content more accessible.
Zandy teaching a group of people ASL.
And so with Engineering Tomorrow, I've worked with them for over a year and a half now, and I've helped over like 30,000 of their students have access to accessible education. And then that kind of effort kind of snowballed because I realized, hey, this might be useful for other organizations as well. And so I reached out to other organizations via my network and people I'd spoken with, and they were actually very willing for me to come in, even though I was really young at the time and seemed a little bit unaware, but they were really willing for me to come in and help provide guidance on how to make the educational content more accessible. So I work with some huge Gen Z brand, including The Conversationalist. Now I work with the U.S. Department of Labor, so it's really exciting. And what my hope and dream for the Next Gen Accessibility Initiative is to really empower youth to realize the importance of accessibility and that they have the power to make a more accessible world. As far as other disability advocacy efforts, I share my story with hearing loss on a TEDx stage and with industry panels and with major news outlets like Teen Vogue and Washington Post. And I hope it helps. It's been really exciting to really be a part of such big efforts. And yeah. Oh, one other thing. I am the Maryland Maryland, D.C., Virginia youth representative to the National Working Group for the U.S. Department of Labor, where I help advise the U.S. Department of Labor on creating equitable transition policies for youth with disabilities as they transition to the workplace and school environments.
Zandy giving a TEDx talk.
A student shouldn't have to be required to continually provide medical reason for why they need a disability, and that they should just be able to ask for what they need. I wish there was more data on really understanding the proportion of disabled students and what kind of accommodations they're getting in higher education especially. I wish there was more training for faculty and kind of TAs and postdocs or whoever's teaching undergrad students to really understand how to put accommodations into place. And I would love to see accessibility, not just be an extra or bonus, but really an integral part of building accessible educational communities.
A professor using CART.
And at the K-12 level, it's a lot different because there's a lot more policy surrounding that. But I just hope that teachers give students a little grace, even if it's not obvious that they're struggling with disability. That everyone goes through their own experiences and they just might need a little support along the way. For students in navigating the educational system with a disability, my biggest advice is really to own your story and own what you need, and don't be afraid to be vocal about it. This comes to the question of disclosure versus non-disclosure. And I understand that, I get this too. I struggle with this. I don't always want to be seen as a disabled girl, but ultimately you have the right to education, and if you need to voice that to get that through, it's so important that you do.
Zandy encouraging younger students.
And that it's really important to find community in these spaces. Might not have that through the K-12 level necessarily, but at the undergraduate level, there's so many support systems for students with disabilities. So you're not alone. I found I won the Heumann-Armstrong Award last Monday. I think I cried. I did cry. My grandfather just passed away that past weekend, so I was a little sad that he couldn't see me win this award. But I'm getting off track. But the Heumann-Armstrong Award means to me, it's really a sense of like a stamp of approval, kind of. You're often alone in disability apps you work. Yes, you are coalition building, but it's often hard to see measurable impact in the work that you're doing. So this award really reaffirms that I'm on the right track to really helping create a world where accessibility is universal and having a disability celebrated. And I'm grateful to follow in the footsteps of previous Heumann-Armstrong Awards, and I hope to continue advocating to really be the change that I want to see in the world.
An illustration of a trophy.
I guess advice to anyone with a disability going through the school system is to remember, that you're really not alone, that your experience is so valid no matter what people try to tell you, and to find support networks that are not just disabled students, but find mentors and peers who can help you, can vouch for you as you go through your process. And apply for the award next year.
A supportive group of people with disabilities.
Thank you, Zandy, for sharing your story with us. You can find more about Zandy in the description of this video, as well as finding out more about each of the organizations that allowed this award to happen. We have 6 winners of this award from last year whose videos have already come out, and there will be 5 other winners of the award from this year whose videos will be coming out over time as well. We're also planning to have some live events over time, so stay tuned and maybe you'll be able to hear from some of our winners live. Please like and share, and thank you for watching this video. Lead on, everyone.